Welcome to Straight Talk for Smart Businesswomen. I'm Cheryl Leitschuh, host of this podcast. If you're a woman-owned small business or professional who's looking for tips and new ideas to build your business, you've come to the right place. We will hear the stories of other women-owned businesses and professionals, along with key learnings they've had as they grow their business. As you hear their stories, I hope you feel validated in your entrepreneurial journey, as well as build new, simple tips to immediately apply to your business. Our guest today is Carol Kaemmerer, and I hopefully said her last name correctly, but I am so excited to have Carol join us on today's podcast. She's really a fascinating woman with a great background, and she has some great services that she offers related to helping others promote themselves. But the one thing you probably, or maybe she will share with you, I don't know, is she spends a chunk of her time in Hawaii. Her and her husband live in Hawaii from, I don't know, January through March, something like that. And she sends me pictures of flowers all the time. So I encourage you, if you are interested in connecting with Carol, and we'll give you her contact information later in the podcast, do connect with her, because she sends you these lovely pictures from Hawaii that just put you in a zen-like state. But let me tell you more about her from a professional perspective. Carol is a popular speaker, executive coach, and corporate trainer who helps businesses and executives leverage the power of LinkedIn to increase their visibility and influence, engage with their ideal audiences, and cultivate reputations as thought leaders. She specializes in strategies for using LinkedIn as a personal branding and business development tool. Businesses engage Carol to help them establish and polish their brand and expand their footprint on LinkedIn, elevate the visibility of their senior leaders to the benefit of both the leader and the organization, provide individual coaching and writing services to enable each top executive to build a thoughtful and powerful presence online, and conduct LinkedIn workshops for employees at all levels, because when employees look good on LinkedIn, the company looks good too. Carol has recently published a book, LinkedIn for Savvy Executives, and I've read it. It's a good book. It's the first book focusing on how executives can use LinkedIn with authenticity and tact to power their careers. Welcome, Carol.
Thanks so much. I'm so pleased to have an opportunity to address your audience.
Yes, and I can't wait for you to share your story of how in the world did you get into this business of doing LinkedIn. So tell us more. Tell us how you got your business started.
Okay, so I have had my own business since 1986, and what I did was develop marketing communications pieces for clients. And then there was a period of time where I worked for 20 years exclusively with a large corporate client. That came to an end because they changed the way that they source their marketing communications people by sending all of their marketing communications work to a New York agency.
Yeah.
So I was out of business, and I had to reinvent myself. So that was about 2011 or so. It took me a long time to recover from that one because it felt like a personal rejection, and I went through a grieving process. But in trying to move forward, I found that there was incredible power in LinkedIn, and that very few people were understanding how to unleash that power for themselves.
Oh,
and
interesting.
During, I was deciding, well, I just couldn't go on consulting because I couldn't figure out how to establish a whole new client base at this point in my life. I just couldn't imagine that. And so I was just going to take an internal job someplace. And while I was looking for positions, I helped all my friends who had lost their jobs at the same time. It was, it was a big, big time for that corporation to unload a lot of personnel. All the internal marketing communications people lost their jobs too.
Yeah.
And it was, it was a world that was kind of falling apart. So I was helping people just for free, the people that I knew, try to understand how LinkedIn works and understand that they really needed to be thoughtful about what they put on their LinkedIn profile. And they were so grateful that they began to refer they're friends to me. And then I realized, oh, here is a new business niche. I have both knowledge about the internal workings of LinkedIn. I figured out the algorithm. I know how to make this tool work, and I have the joy of writing. LinkedIn really should be telling your personal story to real good effect, and I certainly knew how to do that.
Wow.
So with those two pieces, I began to realize that was the next thing I was going to do. And so there I am.
Well, that's so fascinating because it's like your business kind of found you.
I think that's really true.
Yeah,
I think that's really true.
You were wise enough to go, oh, what's happening here? It's right in front of me. This is where I need to go next. Oh, funny.
Well, it's very interesting. So where I am now in my business is I've narrowed my audience of people that I want to work with, and those people are C-suite executives and other executives. And they come to me like I draw them like a magnet. It's wonderful. I'm really enjoying that population. And to assuage my concern that there's so many other people that are not having an opportunity to work one-on-one kind of, I wrote a book, LinkedIn for the Savvy Executive, and I'm looking to become a nationally recognized professional speaker. So all good. I'm having a wonderful time, and who knew that such adversity could lead to so much fun.
And I hear it in your voice. I hear it in your voice as you talk about it. It definitely is a fit. Oh, that's so fun. That's so fun. So that's where you are now, is you're looking to become a national speaker. What are you doing to in that regard? Are you part of the National Speakers Association, or?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I am in the Speaker Academy, which is a National Speakers Association program, and coming up in 2 weeks, I will be speaking to the Minnesota chapter of the National Speakers Association, doing a workshop specifically geared to professional speakers and how to leverage LinkedIn for that.
Wow.
So
Much
I'm
needed.
very excited. Well, it's just so nice because I have loved being part of the Minnesota chapter, as I have been a Speaker Academy member, and it's just been so much fun, and I have wanted to give back. And so I was thinking that I would need to wait until I was done with the Speaker Academy to request a speaking slot, but they came to me. So I was really, really excited. And so that's all good.
Oh, my gosh. So already in our short time together, I've heard about all these things coming to you. So I don't know, because I don't know exactly your 3 business lessons that you're going to share us with them, but tell us your 3 business lessons, because whatever you're doing is bringing business to you rather than having to go knocking and pounding on doors. Tell us more. What are the lessons have you learned?
Okay, so the very first lesson that I learned is that I don't have to be someone else's spokesperson to have something to say. That in my own right, I'm a subject matter expert, and I have a voice. And that was such a unique learning for me. I thought when I was writing for other people, writing their message, that I was, just a pass-through tool. But to realize that actually I have opinions and I have wisdom to share. And that was really a wonderful thing to find out. So that's lesson 1. Lesson 2 is that trying to serve everyone actually brings in less business than focusing who you best serve.
Good. That's a good one.
And then the last one is I learned about the importance of observing and learning how to take care of myself so that I can be my most productive.
Wow, those are great lessons. So can I back up and ask you some questions?
Absolutely.
So I love that you found your own voice. You found your own power. How did you do that? Or did it just kind of like lightning strike you one day?
Well, it was interesting when I began to realize that I was truly making a difference in people's lives. These friends that I was helping, and then the friends of friends that were referred. Mm-hmm. I thought, oh, I could be a trainer. I could help people this way. And I had the opportunity, I created the opportunity to test that out. I had a friend who has a kind of a job placement business where she's placing people for temporary positions, but at a very high professional level.
Okay.
And I knew that she considered those people that she places to be very important to her colleague base. Mm-hmm. And I knew that she had a lovely place in which to train. Mm-hmm. So I approached her and I said, let's do this thing that I think is a win-win-win. I will provide my training for free if you will provide the people and the place and the food. Oh. And the people then wouldn't have to pay. So she was giving value to her colleagues. Mm-hmm. And since no one had to pay, if I wasn't stellar, it wasn't horrible, and it wasn't scary. I didn't have to go out and solicit my own audience. Mm-hmm. It was kind of catered for me in the sense that she set it up, and then it was possible for me to test out, do I have a speaking voice and a message that will resonate with people beyond the one-on-one?
Yep.
And of course I did. And people were really very appreciative of the insights that I provided. And I've learned as I continue to speak that people say that I am very different from other LinkedIn presenters that they've heard because I'm very strategic. Mm-hmm. I don't get down in the weeds and all tangled up in the mechanics. Mm-hmm. I will tell people how they can find out about the mechanics, or if we're doing something that really needs a good explanation, I certainly can explain it. But what I'm best at is telling people what is in their best interests and why, mm-hmm. and going from there. So when I began to hear that I was very different than anything that they'd ever heard, mm-hmm. I began to think, well, what if I go ahead and try to put all these things down that I've been communicating about through LinkedIn. I publish on LinkedIn Pulse regularly. What if I took those messages and gave them the shape of a book? Mm-hmm. What if I began to think of my best audience and channel how they would react to that material? And so that's what I did. And that is kind of a twofer, because it's, the book is the book and it's available, but it also is a platform from which to speak.
So here's what I love about your story is that you took something for granted about yourself, and you didn't even realize you had this great talent to train and to put ideas into shape. But you discovered that. And I think that's so true with so many entrepreneurs that I work with that I meet, is they don't realize that just because it comes easy doesn't mean it's not a great value. It's like, doesn't everybody think like this? Well, no, not everybody thinks like that. But it comes so easy for you that you think, well, who would make a business out of this? It's way too easy.
Right.
Yes. And then the other piece that I love about your story is you kept asking, well, what if? Okay, so what if really I did have some talent here? So what if, how could I test that? And then what if that? And you kept asking a what if question to keep letting it grow and build and experimenting with options as to where it could go. I love that.
I do too. It is interesting to be open to what signals the universe is sending. You know, when people go out of their way to give you feedback that is really meaningful, you really need to listen.
And I think that's probably the difference with maybe working in an organization versus being an entrepreneur, is you have to listen.
Well, you know, I kind of think the years that I worked with corporate client exclusively, I was just going through the motions. I did great work, but I wasn't really fully engaged. They didn't use all of my skills. And when it ended, I was very undone. You know, I really grieved. But when I looked back, I realized that it really had been only in the first 5 years of that period of time when I was truly engaged, because they had a very small staff and they were delegating kind of the whole kit and caboodle for me. And so that I was able to do both strategy and writing, which was important to me. And I just kept thinking, well, you know, that time will come again. And in between, I'll just do this work as it comes. So it was kind of like being cut off from my real feelings. I was not aware that I was not engaged. Again, that's so common of what I hear from people coming from corporate into doing an entrepreneur journey, is they end up having to be more in touch with themselves, if you will. Absolutely.
Because there's so many more decisions that are based on you, and you're being more vulnerable, I think, because it is all about you. It is all about you. So I love your number 2. Trying to serve everyone actually brings in less business than having a well-defined niche. Now, that's a tough one, because I run into so many people who say, well, I can serve everybody. You know, I don't want to narrow in. How was it that you decided to narrow in? And you've done it rather early in your journey here.
Yes. Okay. So it really, when you are providing one-on-one individual coaching, you really have to like the person that you're working with, or you're pretty miserable. And what I found was that I work best with executives. Those are the people that I had served for all those 20 years when I was working with a corporate client. You know, communicating, writing the letters and memos that executives need to write. I have the finesse to do that. And executives expect that someone will have that finesse and have it done. You know, when there's a hard letter to write, they don't just sit down and do it themselves. So those people understood that I had finesse and that finesse was required. And they were willing to pay for that. When I worked with other people, they assumed that everyone can write. They were just kind of hurrying up the process when they hired me. And they were not happy paying anything, or certainly not a rate that I wanted to make. And so that was, a point of real resentment when you're trying to give your very best and people are saying, well, I have to pay for that? It's like, yeah. So it was interesting. It was interesting that the value that my ideal audience put on my work was very, very high, and the value that other people put on my work was not.
Oh.
And I didn't enjoy working with them then because, I'm trying to take a diamond in the rough and cut it in just the gemstone way to make it really shine on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That works when you're working with a high-performing individual. That is really hard when you're starting with that sow's ear. Trying to make yourself first.
Yeah.
It's not satisfying. I want to write about superlative people, and so I do.
I hope our listeners are really hearing what you're saying here because, I've been in business for 28 years, and I will tell you early on I took on a lot of work just because I wanted money in the door, and so much, and not all of it, but some of it was miserable because, as you said, if you don't like the person you work with, you're going to be miserable, and it doesn't make any difference what they pay you because it's not going to be worth it, and they probably won't pay you, as you said, at the rate or level that you really deserve to be paid. So,
the other thing that I found was that executives understood that there was a difference between someone who worked for everyone and someone who worked for executives.
Ah.
And so my referrals have gone, through the roof because I'm a specialist. I work with them. And it actually makes it so much easier because one of the things that I do when I help people on their LinkedIn profile is I help them identify the skills that can be in their skills inventory. LinkedIn allows us to have 50 skills, and that's kind of hard to figure out on your own because people don't spend their time searching the LinkedIn skills inventory. It's kind of esoteric. You have to kind of think of a keyword, and then it drills down and provides options. And so having done that for many executives, I kind of know the pockets to look in, for those skills, and it can go so much more quickly. And I think people understand that there's just a different kind of treatment that I'm providing, and a different knowledge level that I'm providing because I work with executives and they are pleased with what I provide and willing to refer their colleagues. So,
well, they understand. They understand because you understand. So it kind of number two is tapping into number one. You understand what you bring and the power of what it is that you bring to the services.
Yes, I would say that after this adversity of losing my job, so to speak, even though I had my own business, I lost my client, that I really have come to understand a whole lot more about the power that I have in myself and the power that I can bring when I serve others. So it's been a nice journey.
Oh, wow. And what I love about being an entrepreneur, and I hear it in you too, is you never quite know when that's going to show up for you. In my years of being in business, that richness of understanding what I bring and really owning that is kind of keeps unfolding like an onion or like a flower. And I would guess that's going to happen for you. Even as you are out speaking and building your speaking career, you're going to discover even more and more. Very cool. But in the meantime, number 3, practicing self-care. How do you do that?
Yes.
What is it that you do? Maybe differently than you did when you were in the corporate world, but what is it you do now to take care of yourself?
Okay. Well, The very first thing that I do, it relates to exercise. And I find that I have three needs to take care of myself. One of them is having a structure that allows exercise. And so I actively participate in classes, and I have a personal trainer, and I have a schedule that I keep, and so it makes it happen. It's on the schedule, and anything that's on the schedule gets done. So that's a wonderful thing, and it means that something is happening every day. If I am waiting until the end of the day to say take a walk, that is really something that often slides off. It's like, oh no, I'm on a roll. I have to finish this, whatever it is, and I don't have time. But if you put it in the beginning of the day, that works really well. Another need that I have is some social interaction every day.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things, when you work for yourself and you work essentially at home, I do have an office to meet my clients, but when I'm writing, I would just prefer to sit at home. I have a wonderful office, and I am kind of a solitary person, and so having it be quiet and being able to concentrate at home when there's no one else around, it's just great. But I don't have the fuel that I need unless I've had some social interaction. And so I find that my exercise classes provide that. I have friends that I see and interactions, and that's great. Even interacting with my social trainer is enough social for me to have the fuel to be creative, from a productive way. And then the other thing that has been very important to me is aesthetic care. So I have my nails done every 2 weeks. I have my hair done really frequently. Because I am presenting to an executive audience, and they can come in their jeans if they're not employed. They can look catty, but they expect someone very polished on the other side of the table. And so I spend a lot of time just making sure that I look my best each time I meet them. And it makes me feel better. It makes them feel comfortable, and it all goes well. So those are things that I observe that make me more productive in my interactions and in my comfort level.
Oh, I love that list. I love that list. I'm gonna post that. I'm gonna steal your list.
Okay.
Because I do think it is really easy, especially when you're an entrepreneur, to get. There is no end of the day. It's not like the building's now locked. You need to leave the building. The building, you are living in the building, and you're interacting in the building, and you're having dinner with your husband in your building. So really being very intentional about the self-care, and I love your 3 things on your self-care list to keep yourself polished and ready to go.
Yes.
Very nice. Very nice. I love your 3 lessons. So let me read them again, just so our listeners, because hopefully they didn't get lost in our conversation. Number 1 is you don't have to be someone's spokesperson or writer to have something to say. That you are a subject matter expert in your own right with knowledge and wisdom others are eager for. Number 2 is trying to serve everyone actually brings in less business than having a well-defined niche. And number 3, practicing self-care is essential for everyone, but especially for those who are solopreneurs. Very good. Great list. Great list. So how do our listeners get a hold of your book? How do they get a hold of you if they have more questions?
Okay. Well, I think one of the easiest ways is to write in LinkedIn for the Savvy Executive, because you will find my book. It's available on all the online booksellers, Amazon, and all of its subsidiaries, the groups that sell for Amazon. It's on BarnesandNoble.com. And it's available in a beautiful hardcover book and also on Kindle now. So that makes it easy. The other thing is, if you know how to spell my name, which is really a challenge. It's like yours. It's one of those German names with kind of too many letters. So it's Kaemmerer. Mm-hmm. So from there, you should be able to find me on LinkedIn, and you should find my website, carolkaemmerer.com. And also my Twitter account. So those are ways to interact with me. Every month I post a new article to LinkedIn Pulse, and it's about a new area of, or not a new area, but an area of LinkedIn. There's so many things to do on LinkedIn, and if you threw them at someone all at the same time, it would be hard to digest. Yeah. So, like the article that I wrote this month was about the new LinkedIn, the new interface, and where you would find each aspect of LinkedIn that you knew before and can't find now.
Yeah, why did they do that anyway? Keep us engaged, really, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, the other thing is that they're streamlining their model. They're making the desktop model look a whole lot more like the phone app. And it's not something that I'm particularly pleased with, but it's a business strategy that they have used, and we just have to kind of go with it, because LinkedIn is the best tool around for sharing our personal brand online. Mm-hmm. So
great. And for our listeners who are listening through iTunes, you will see that you have show notes connected to the iTunes link, and I will make sure that I have all of this information as to where to find Carol's book, her LinkedIn connection, her website, as well as connection to LinkedIn Pulse. So, Carol, thank you so much. I've learned so much from you today. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you. It's just been a pleasure.
Yes, and thank you to our listeners for joining us today on Straight Talk for Smart Business Women. New shows post every Thursday, so stay tuned for next Thursday. I have some surprises coming up in the next few weeks, so I hope you'll be listening. And in the meantime, keep growing your business.